Hey guys, I'm back again. I have received a couple of requests from students about Task 2 of Writing module, and here I am in front of you guys where I will be discussing the marking criteria and some tips that you can use to get better scores in the second task of writing module. So, the first thing that I want to tell you is the length. Remember, if you write under length, they will reduce your marks very significantly. So I suggest writing 280 words instead of 250, which is the normal instruction given to you in the question paper. If you write 280 words, one thing is for sure, you will never go under length. So when you practice, try writing 280 words. Stop thinking about 250. Forget that number. Go with 280. So let's talk about the marking criteria that is used to evaluate what you write during the exam day. So there are 4 of them, and the first one is task requirement. Under this criteria, they look for this particular thing: answer all the questions. So in IELTS, you get a question, normally a statement, and then the question follows. So if the question tells you discuss both views and give your opinion, make sure you address all 3 questions. Discuss both views means you have to talk about both of the sides of the argument and then present your opinion as well. So make sure you answer all the questions given to you in the question paper. Next one, reasons. So whatever you claim must have reasons behind it. So let's say if you get a question that says education should be free, do you agree or disagree? So if you are going to say it should be free, then you must tell me why do you think so. There is no point defining education or talking about education or even talking about the benefits of education. I don't care about that. I need to know the reasons why you believe it should be free. That should be your primary focus. So keep an eye on reasons all the time when you write. Moving on, examples. So that is another part of the question. If you look at the question in IELTS examination, just below the question you'll find another sentence that says give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. So these 2 things must be there in your answer to get a decent score. So an example could be personal or it could be some general examples if you know them. But make sure you include around 2 examples. 1 I would say is too little and 3 I would say is too many. So I would go with 2 examples. So try that. Let's move on. Introduction. Introduction is indeed the first paragraph that you will write. So it should have a statement first that talks about what is being discussed in the essay, and then a thesis statement which tells the reader exactly what you are going to write in that essay. So let's say if you get a question that says education should be free, agree or disagree, your thesis statement should tell me very clearly where you stand on that topic. So make sure you have a strong thesis statement that tells the reader what you are going to write in the rest of the essay. Okay, moving on to the conclusion. I've seen many students have problems with conclusion. They start bringing up new things in their conclusion. But remember, conclusion is a short paragraph that just wraps up what you have already discussed. So try not to include any new information in your conclusion. Wrap up what you have already written, but make sure you use paraphrase or synonyms to talk about the same thing but in a slightly different language. That's all you need to do to write your conclusion. Moving on to the next criteria, coherence and cohesion. Here you have to keep a couple of things in your mind. So let me start with the structure first. So your essay should look tidy. That is a physical property of an essay, let's say. So it should have decent paragraphs. So you could have an introduction, 2 or 3 paragraphs in the body section, and then a short conclusion. So that is the structure. and each paragraph should have a central idea. So especially in the body section, make sure you don't write too many things in the same paragraph. Many students write like bullet points, which obviously does not give you marks because it doesn't maintain coherence and cohesion. So talk about one idea, give reasons behind that, give me an example, and then that should be it for that paragraph. So have one central idea and then elaborate that idea with reasons, with examples, and that's it. You've constructed a good paragraph. Connectives are equally important to maintain coherence and cohesion. So when you start the first paragraph, you could start by saying to begin with. So if you're talking about two causes of pollution, in the first paragraph you could say to begin with and so on. So that would be a good way to start. And then in the second paragraph you could simply say another significant cause of pollution. So another is a word that connects those two paragraphs. And remember, these kind of efforts give you marks because they have this marking criteria. So you could also use some other things like in the similar manner, or even you could say on the other hand, when you are talking about two different views. So keep these connectives in your mind when you write and make sure to use them. So let's move on to the third marking criteria, lexical resource. So here they look for vocabulary. And when it comes to vocabulary, it's not just about learning or memorizing words. It's more about showing your skill. How can you do that? You can change style. So for example, if you are going to use a word entrepreneur, if you need to use it the second time, make it entrepreneurship. So population could also be changed. The number of people, so people, population. So those kind of efforts do tend to give you better scores in terms of lexical resource. Collocation is another aspect that is being checked. So can you combine a couple of words together to produce a better meaning? So instead of saying number of people dying, can you say death rate or the life expectancy, for example? So these kind of things reflect collocation, and they tend to give you better scores when it comes to IELTS writing task 2, even task 1, and speaking test as well. The last one, less common vocabulary. Learn a few new words, good ones, especially on the topics that are frequently asked in the IELTS test, like education, medical science, or maybe even language, culture. Have some very strong words ready. I would not say memorizing them, I would say using them frequently. Use them again and again. Use them when you talk so that you have it in the back of your head, and then when you need it, you can use them without making any grammatical errors. So the last criteria takes me to grammatical range and accuracy. Remember, there are two aspects to this: diversity and accuracy. Accuracy is indeed very important because this is academic writing. So make sure your subject-verb agreements are there. Make sure your sentences are properly structured and are complete. And then try to inject diversity into your language. Use passive voice at times. Go with active voice at times. Try to change tense every now and then. So make sure you don't give a monotonous essay. So if all your sentences sound similar, the examiner is not going to like it for sure. So you need to inject diversity into your language. Okay, and use of examples. So when you start an example, you could always say, for example. But instead of doing that, why don't you say, for instance, or maybe even a good illustration of this? And if you can squeeze these kind of words in the middle of a sentence, it makes it sound even better. Let me give you a quick example. So if I am going to talk about education being free, then I could say human right, comma, for instance, comma, has been a hot topic of discussion, and it can never be achieved without free education. So that way I managed to embed for instance in the middle of a sentence. Normally students tend to keep it at the beginning of the sentence which makes the sentence sound a bit ordinary. So the same words, for instance, if you can keep it in the middle of a sentence, makes your sentence better, and thus giving you better marks in terms of this particular marking criteria. Okay, so these were the criteria under which British Council marks your test, writing task 2. Well, there are 4 major types of questions that are asked frequently. I will do another video where I am going to explain all of them to you and tell you how to structure your essay for each type of question. Do make sure you catch that video, and thank you very much for watching this.